Banana and Bears Rugby Pod.
And this week, well, we're today's Tuesday, so I've got training. So I'm drinking now like some protein yolk I picked up in the thing. It is terrible.
Right. Well, welcome everybody to episode 3 of.
Oh yeah, welcome everyone.
You join us as Anna is preparing her body for elite. What is the face? You're like, for the audio listeners, the face that Anna just pulled looked like a fly flew into your mouth, or a whole family of flies flew into your mouth after taking a drink of that.
That's disgusting. The first taste of it, it's banana and nuts.
Jesus, you are on brand. You are on brand.
I was thinking, like, yeah, peanut butter maybe was, peanut butter and banana obviously was the kind of, something wrong. Nuts they put in this. It's desperate. Anyway, get back to drinking beer. Another time after training. Drink a beer on the way home from training.
Well, we are recording this after round 2 of the Six Nations. This is, of course, if you're first time listening, I don't know how you've ended up on episode 3 and you haven't joined us on the other ones. But if you have ended up here by accident, this is what we're doing. We're doing Six Nations rugby. And it is, today, happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, it is the 14th as we record this, and you'll be getting this, of course, on the 15th. But there was love in the air anyway at the weekend when the excitement in your voice, Anna, when we were leaving each other's voicemails on Sunday, I think it was, and just the excitement in both our voices. And I said I don't know if it's the fact that the Six Nations that we knew we were going to be talking about it, but I'm very, very excited. And it's easy to be an excited Ireland fan right now, isn't it?
Yeah, I almost, like, after listening to all, kind of the reflection on the game, everyone's the same. Oh, are we going to win the World Cup? So, and I felt very excited until now. I've been today now a bit more pessimistic. Could be the Valentine's Day thing as well. But I'm feeling a bit like, oh, okay, come on now, everyone. Let's relax. Relax. And then there's the other half of me that's like, fucking, let's enjoy this,
It's a very Irish way to think, isn't it? Whoa. We're getting ahead of ourselves. But the
only reason I feel that we're getting ahead of ourselves is because of days gone by and how we've built up to World Cup years before.
Yes.
That's the only reason.
So to ask you how your week went, really first I want to know where you watched it. You were hoping to be in the Ducks and you were spewing. You were spewing on the phone to me. You were like, I didn't make it to Burducks.
So I booked a few flights that were very cheap a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, yeah, somewhere in France, some small little town, I can rock into a pub and watch it with French people just on my own. Last year, a few of us, we did the same thing. We're like, where's the cheapest flight in France? We want to go watch Ireland versus France at a French pub. And we ended up in La Rochelle. It was like €16 return from London Stansted to La Rochelle. And we had a ball. So I was like, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it on my Toblerone, even though I have friends in Bordeaux, but they weren't there. So I was like, heck it, I'll go anyway. But the problem is, I'm in Spain. The pay for the rugby here doesn't fund like trips to Bordeaux over a weekend off. And I'm waiting on a job. So the bank accounts are like running slightly dry, but I had a small bit, like, do you know your Revolut account?
Yeah.
Do you use Revolut? Do you know it tops up, like, or it adds like to a vault when you spare change? I had a couple of euro in that. And I was like, after the game, I was like, why didn't I just use that to go to Bordeaux? I'm fuming with myself because of how good the game was.
It was a great idea. It was. I was absolutely, because I would love the notion.
I actually can't listen to this now. I need you to tell me, look, Anna, being sensible is the right thing to do. Come on now, you're 33 years old. You can't be going to Bordeaux with €100 in your wallet. I'm a fool.
I know. Fool. Yeah, okay.
I'm raging with myself.
Everybody listen to this is most likely a responsible, like, mind themselves kind of person. But in your position, Anna the Banana, please, in your position, you're playing rugby. You're like, you are living the fucking dream. I don't care if you had €5. You would have gone down there. You would have put a sneaky bet on with some French crowd. Go, I tell you what, you would have fucking down pints. Oh, you would have been supping fucking 30 cents wine.
I
Look,
can't.
I know.
Do you know what?
Getting into rows too. Oh,
I love it. That's what we were doing last year in La Rochelle. La Rochelle. People who are listening to this have been to La Rochelle will know the pub I'm talking about. It's a small little pub on like the side of the market, but you enter into it from the outside of the market. What's your man's name? Raphael. I think he's the barman or something like that. Rafa or something like that. And it's full. It's covered in like jerseys and flags from rugby clubs all over the world, plastered all over the walls. And we went in there last year on the Friday, and we were like, "Oh, are you showing the match here tomorrow?" He was like, "Of course." And we were like, "Oh, great. Okay, we'll have a drink here now." So, and we literally rolled out of there like 4 hours later, hammered. And we turned up the next day, and he had like a table reserved for us, like right up the front. And he gave us French hats and French face paint, and we put an Irish hat on him and dressed him up all Irish. And it was the game, like it was a brilliant game last year. Do you remember Ireland and France?
Yeah,
and,
we got nipped. Yeah. But it was
we did get nipped, but it was brilliant. And like that Mac Hansen try, do you remember off the kickoff?
Oh my God, Superman. Yeah.
And I was up jumping on the seats like, yes. And all these French people were like raging with the try and like raging with me. And then they scored like not long after, and the roof blew off the pub because we had been
just to shut you up. Yeah.
Exactly.
Love that.
So good. So it might have been slightly different on my Toblerone, like I could have been in danger. But so that's what I'm telling myself. I'm like, yeah, it would have been very dangerous to go.
Do you know, that's something that's often can be missing, because the Aviva can be a bit of a bog when it comes to good crack sometimes, like, you know, because you get your Dermots, you know, and it can be that. But you know, wasn't it what I loved at the weekend was the rowdy French that were there. They reckon it was 10,000 French there, and it actually created a proper atmosphere, didn't it?
I know, it was amazing. I'd love to have been there. So many people saying like it was one of the best games I've ever been to, and because of the French, and like a lovely atmosphere as well. No, nothing hostile, like literally just like cheering for the rugby and for the players, and like the fact that, you know, there's actually no malice in anything, like everyone, you know, gushing over Dupont and like gushing over Penaud and like loving the way the French play. That's easier to say, obviously, when you come out on top, but like I think it seems to be reversed. Like any of the kind of French interviews I saw with any of the French fans or anything like that, they were all in great spirits, like even afterwards as well. So
I suppose too, they did not to drag your soul through it now, but I mean, they kind of did the Anna on it in a sense that they just fecked out. However, they got, there's only supposed to be 5,000 tickets, so thankfully it would seem a lot of the corporate ones filtered back through Deloitte or whoever, or filtered back through. Great, they put on their cockerel hats, you know, they had the rooster hats on, face paint, fucking great. Have them there instead of the lads, do you know what I mean, drinking pints of dynamite, you know, like, or the doses who have no interest in being there, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing worse sitting there and it's like two Canadians going, "Oh my God, we got these tickets from, like, we work for Price Waterhouse," and you're like, "Shut up, you've no fucking business." That
doesn't usually happen at the Six Nations, though. I know it's there could be a worry that it's starting to creep into the game, but I think usually for Six Nations now, Dublin heads are different. Sorry, not Dublin heads. Very traditional rugby supporters. Yeah, D4 heads.
Yeah.
Rossa Carl Kelly and his pals, who I love. Do you read Rossa Carl Kelly?
Oh my God! Sure, I had Paul. I was given the honor of being imitated, because you know the way he would do Rossa Carl Kelly on the podcast, like a 5-minute clip. Well, the following week he went, "Do you mind if I try doing your accent as a horse trainer from Tipperary in next week's one?" I would absolutely love that, because he was on my show. And
Yeah.
he did it. In all fairness, I haven't had many people been able to do my accent pretty well, but he did a decent effort.
Very
Like
good.
it was a decent. So it was like the honor of me as this horse
Being
trainer
Russell Carl Kelly.
talking to Russell Carl Kelly. Yeah, it was very, very cool. But yeah,
I do be roaring laughing at the impressions he does of country people in the book. In the
Oh.
book, like I've never had to put down a book to laugh out loud as much as I have done at Russell Carl Kelly.
it's the phonetic writing. And it was, I thanked him for when I did Damo and Ivor. I wouldn't have been able to do Damo and Ivor if I hadn't been able to read phonetically how would you ever fuck off? You know what I mean? Oh. So, but yeah, I thankfully that didn't come across, and it came, like, stark contrast to some of the other stadiums over the weekend. But sure, we'll get into that. But definitely there was my watching of the game. It wasn't as wild with the child this time. I think he's starting
training him in.
Yeah, he's starting to grasp what was on. Like at one stage, he was hanging off my neck, and I jumped up when Johnny Sexton took off.
Oh yeah.
I was shouting Johnny, but immediately he jumped in front of the telly. He just started shouting at Johnny. So it's like, oh, you're starting to get what this is about now. So time to start bringing you to matches now, so you can start actually grasping what this is about. But he immediately, all he could care for was whenever there was a ruck. That seemed to be his. I would say there's probably strains of Anacaplis in him, in that you can see he just wants to smash people. Like, I don't think he's into
head into the ruck.
Yeah, I think he wants to put his face places most people wouldn't put their leg. You know, that kind of, he's that kind of he uses his face to smash things out of the way. So I'm like, you're not going to
think of me.
Sevens, like back rowers are, you know what I mean? Look, it's not like fullbacks who look like beautiful swans. Look at Hugo Keenan. I mean, he's a beautiful swan. He's beautiful when he just glides through the air, whereas 6, 7s, and 8s love to just bash people. Do you know?
Yeah, you're right. He sounds like a back row, right? Back row trainer.
So let's get into it. The game, I mean, it was billed. We lived with, it would seem we lived with the tag of favourites, but Ireland were trying to play it down, of course, as they do. But they lived with it comfortably, and that seems to be something that popped up in previous World Cups that I noticed. They were like, stop, don't be looking at me. We're doing all right. Sure, look, go away at that. But this time round, it seems to be like, sure, look, we're here to win this fucking thing and win the World Cup as well when it comes around. So, like, it's there. At no point did I feel, oh, would you stop? I was truly looking forward to how Ireland were going to turn up this week. Like,
I had no doubt that was how they were going to turn up for some reason.
Yeah, same.
And you'd wonder, Jesus, sure, here we are talking about the World Cup, and I don't want to, but it's so tempting because it's so interesting. It's so interesting, and I wonder how much they talk about the World Cup inside in camp. I'd say they're not even allowed to mention it. I'd say they wouldn't. I'd say they don't care. They're just like focusing on the job at hand. They really trust that that's how they're managing this. Literally just one game at a time. I know you can't look that far forward, but obviously Andy Farrell is thinking of like what players he uses, what players he wants to see, etc. But at the same time, I agree with you that they dealt with it so well, and I just don't see them. I'd just be so disappointed now if they started to waver or falter or just kind of not be the players that we know they can be, and not perform the way they can. Do you know, we were talking last week about, I was saying about, geez, they came out the blocks and it was so intense, and I was like, that's so unsustainable. I mean, well, that theory went in the bin. Might have been a different pace like the whole way throughout, but they certainly sustained it. They must have heard us. They must have been listening to the pod and be like, well, fuck those guys.
Well, that's, you know what, that was my initial thought. About 7 minutes in, I went, what's that fucking betting they listened to last week's episode? The whole place, they played it over the team room in the hotel up in Carton House or wherever they were, and just thought, fuck them too now. We'll show them how fit we are. But you know what? Andy Farrell spotted this. He must have been reading through the emails of the refs, because they're trying to speed up the game. 46 minutes in play. That's 6 minutes more than average.
If we're going to talk about the referees, how I felt watching the game, watching Wayne Barnes, because there were so many moments, and we'll come back to obviously the yellow red card in a little bit. There were so many moments you're like, oh, surely they'll go back to look at that, and then like 30 seconds later you're like, go on, and then 30 seconds later you've forgotten, like genuinely what it felt like. And I wrote about this in my column. I've started writing a column.
Have you? Wait, right.
for the Evening Echo, if people want to read it. But basically what I was talking about in it was like watching like the minis on a Sunday morning, and there's no referee, so like you're like
yeah.
Here, will you please just go in the middle there, and you hand the whistle to some like hungover parent who's like, oh Christ. And there's so much going on. Play on. That's how I felt watching that. It was like there. I could barely keep track. And like Wayne Barnes is brilliant. I thought the same about Andy Brace. And I thought World Rugby and the referees have obviously sat down and they're like, right, play on, play. Try to keep away from scrums as much as you can, because when the scrums start to go down, we're fucked and people lose interest and then we lose money. And I think the same happened in terms of the red card. I have a feeling there's obviously some very brilliant people in World Rugby, but I have a feeling what they said was like, look for any reason not to give red cards, please, because red card tarnishes the outcome. Like, can you imagine if France had finished that game of 14 men and like we could have won by more, we could have lost, I don't know, but it's always a question then of like, okay, well, how would we do, when we come to meet them again in the World Cup, potentially, possibly, whatever. We're like, oh yes, we beat them the last time. Oh, but they only had 14 men. And I was so sad watching that tackle. I was like, no, he's gonna have to go to he's gonna have to pack his bags here. And then when it was a yellow, literally everyone was like, oh, what the hell? I think Wayne Barnes is looking for any excuse. I could be completely wrong saying that now, that's a message from World Rugby. I think World Rugby, they're obviously very focused on player welfare and safety, but they're thinking about like, let's keep the game as competitive and fast flowing as possible. And I think all the referees did that this weekend, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, like what I saw with like Antonio, I think what he was trying to say, and this is to back up what you're saying, I think I watched it a few times and he did strike. See, this is the thing. The mitigating factor is the man is 145 fucking kgs. His shoulder is the size of a car door. Now, he did hit the chest momentarily, but I mean in a millisecond. But he also hit the fucking chin while hitting the chest. Like, if it was a normal-sized human, he would have hit the chest and rode up. But he literally hit his chest and hit his chin and neck and down near the back of his fucking head all at the same time, because he's that big. So I think that was the complexity of it. I think if he was kind of saying, look, there is a fucking directive, I gotta mind his head, sure. But in like the argument being, well, you go, well, if it's a yellow, it's a fucking red. Do you know what? But I think there was a millisecond that he did also hit the chest and chin at the same, more or less the same time. And he was like, let's look at, and the game would have fucking went to ribbons. It would have, like, at the way Ireland were pulling him around the field, it would have went to ribbons, because like Antonio was the only thing that was slowing down some of the Irish ball, because he's just a monster. Like, the guy's he's not human, like the size of the guy. And heaven forbid we then have to listen to the French going, we would do us only 14 of us and you beat us. And you're like, well, for fuck's sake, we beat 16 if you were out there. Do you know?
But they were happy to let that happen for the last year. I feel like it's been about a year now that they've just been like royal flush of red cards, like every week, every weekend, every month, like red, because they were deliberately trying to send a message. Bring your tackles down. And I'm really confused at this, because if this was a couple of weeks ago, it would have been a red. I think it's a change in heart. Okay, let's start making the games we've kind of had a stab at it now. Kind of trying to change it. Let's just kind of lay off a little bit because it's a World Cup year.
Well, a conspiracy theorist would turn around and a cynical bastard like me and go, the money people at the top are going, we need more fucking eyes on this sport. We cannot have 13 playing fucking 12. We cannot.
There's a part of me agrees with you, and then a part of me that's really trying to, that really believes in the good side of world rugby, and it's like, okay, no, I'm gonna say no, that's not the case, and that it's just a case of, I don't even know, because it obviously was dangerous. It was a dangerous tackle, and if you put Antonio in the bin, if you send him off and give France a red card, because there wasn't just one incident of that either. There was more. There was more shoulders to chin.
So much. There was so much, and there was seatbelt tackles. There was, you name it. It was all over everywhere.
But like everyone, and I've heard the argument like, oh well, Antonio's massive, so like it's hard for him. Well, okay, if he wants to play rugby and he wants to play it safely, he has to take
that was lazy. What he did was lazy.
Back off if he doesn't have time, because you might argue that like, oh, he doesn't have time to readjust. He needs to take an extra step back in defense to buy him half a second more to bend at the hip. So that's what he would take away from it. That's what he would learn. And next time, well, considering, I don't know, he's been cited, so we're obviously waiting on the outcome of that. So he might have to like go through that process anyway. And maybe that's how you manage it from here on. And did you read about this new 20-minute red card they're going to trial in where? Southern Hemisphere?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, they're going to give it a go. We won't labor on it too much, but I do agree with you. A bloke that size, if you can't bend, I think he came up to put a shot on him, but that's all well and good if you're Gary Ringrose putting a shot on somebody, like he did on Dan Biggar last week. Met him, melted him, cut him in half. Right at the hips, even to the point that Dan Biggar busted on the ground, gave him a thumbs up, like going, that was class. Your man just came up to put a shot on him. Grand, use your chest, use your whatever, but he milled him right under the chin.
The kids that I coach, or the players, the young players that I coach, I tell the taller ones, you have to work twice as hard as him or her.
Yeah,
that's your responsibility. Sorry, this is just the way it is, but you have to work twice as hard as her to get lower, because you're in danger of hurting someone, putting someone else. So that responsibility is on you. So him, because I've heard that as well. Sure, look, he's massive. So how was he supposed to? That's his responsibility.
Well, this is the first time I've ever heard somebody as a top end rugby player, rugby coach, ever saying this in the past few weeks. And, it's in the past few years. First time I've ever heard somebody actually go, I'm telling my tall players to fucking be responsible for your size. Be responsible for the height of yourself, because you get loads of cool things like catching the ball high. You know what I mean? You get loads of cool things.
That's your role. I always tell you, you have to work twice as hard. And actually, they kind of like it. They kind of respond well to that. They, especially young kids, they're like, okay, yeah, because it's pointing out their strength.
Yeah.
That needs to be used, and that's why they're there on other parts of the pitch. But then it means that they have to work twice as hard, and then they know that if they do it well, they get kind of extra praise for it then as well. Because imagine Antonio's hit if he had got him in the hip.
Oh, it would have been the best hit of the match. Like, he would have
been the best hit of the match. Would have been the clatter of the week. And I was going to say Andrew Porter, Rob Herring would probably have finished the game.
Yeah. Because that, look, I think we everybody has talked to it from every angle, but I really like the angle you came at it there. I don't think we'll solve it either, but it had to be mentioned. But one thing I took away from, I'm taking away from Ireland at the minute, and it makes, there's a little kind of child in me, not a child, but just a giddiness in me that thinks, I wouldn't care if Andy Farrell asked me to run up the side of a mountain with my hair on fire. I'd say I'd do it. I'd say they love him, don't they? They absolutely love him.
Yes. Do you know, I love him as well. Do you know why? Because I don't know if Johnny Sexton was injured or not when he was coming off, but there was half an hour to go.
Yeah.
And Johnny Sexton was raging when he was coming off.
He wasn't injured. He wasn't.
We've seen that reaction from him before, where he's like, oh, I don't want to come off. And okay, look, we need to give whoever's next to the line, and in at the moment it's Ross Byrne. We need to give him time and experience. And then like a few minutes later, you see Craig Casey and the other young guns coming on. When the game is pretty much like still in the balance.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not only giving them like the experience of closing out a game that's still in the balance, like which is high pressure. You're not just going out there to play for yourself. You know, you're going out there to like, oh God, the team is relying on me here to keep this pace, to keep it going. Because like so often when subs come in, the game's decided. So that side of pressure is less piercing. But I love it because I feel like what Andy Farrell is saying to them, it's sending a message, and I'm sure he has these conversations with them personally as well. It's like, I completely trust you to do this job. And there's no like, look, you're not starting because, you know, you're not as good as him. It's like, I know you could do that job as well.
Yeah.
So I just have to put us in some order, and just so happens at the moment, and the road you've got to get here at the moment, you're second in line to him. But that doesn't mean that I rate you any less. I completely trust you to close out and win this game versus France. So it's not just an experience exercise, it's a message to them to build their confidence. And I loved it.
Well, they reacted to it because Ross Byrne was pumped. He was absolutely pumped. It's like the guy who is, you know, the most just somber looking bloke of all time. He looked, you know, he's that puppy dog look, kind of going, okay, we'll just get through this, even though he's a great player. But he was shouting and roaring. He was pumped up on the pit. It was obviously, you know, it was the rocket that she was obviously going to go on there. Hey, I tell you what, make that jersey yours, because your man isn't going to be there for it. You know what I mean? Like, I loved it. It's just, I get the vibe. Even, I mean, last year when they lost in November in the first in the series against New Zealand, Andy Farrell actually went, I love this now. I love this because this is after giving us a challenge. Like, the guy just loves going to war, like with their backs to the wall kind of stuff. Like, so it just a special mention. I know everybody's been talking about the players and all the rest of it. I had to ask, because there you go. You obviously love him just as much as I love him. The guy played for Great Britain and Wigan when he was 17. Jesus Christ. Like, Jesus Christ.
But it's reminding me of Jack Charlton.
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
It's like Jack Charlton. There was a beautiful photo of him and Caelan Doris having a pint together after the game. Did you see that?
No.
So cute. They're just standing there smiling, holding their pints. And that made me think of like the feeling I had when I saw the young people coming in. And then when I saw Andy Farrell, like, they're obviously just sometimes, obviously it depends on the coach. Obviously Andy Farrell is a very approachable coach. He knows his players, they know him. He trusts them and they really like him. What a great formula. Different to that of Joe Schmidt, who seemed to be very I think they liked him and he liked his players, but a very different relationship.
Well, a lot of the coaches that came before, like Joe Schmidt, Declan Kidney, Eddie O'Sullivan, a lot of them actually came from teaching backgrounds. So, do you know, there was teacher and student kind of thing, whereas this is like older brother. Yes. Nearly like I'm your young dad, which is what he is to his own son who has excelled. You know, it's like, he's the coolest. I remember Andy Farrell or Jamie Heaslip when he came on board, he was like, this guy, he jumped under the bench and out bench pressed all of us when we in Ireland, you know, and he's retired a good few years. Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, he just, lads, no stretching, no nothing, and they're all giving it socks, like Porter, all the big boys, and he jumps under the bench and throwing another plate. There are no more plates. Fucking hang off the side of it, and just started out benching everybody. You're going, hey, the man's. So you see somebody you see your coach out benching everybody. You're like, yeah, all right, okay, we're on board. We're on board. With James Lowe, I know, I'm sure you want to go something, but just something nobody's mentioned. That man had the strangest day with his foot. He boots the ball off the camera. This game had everything. He kicked it off the fucking camera, hanging out in the sky like the fucking Truman Show. He hits the fucking camera with the ball. I mean,
and that was the first like 30 seconds of the game.
You know, I mean, that And that would have rattled Ireland, I think, on other occasions, because it basically gave France and they got a scrum and got a penalty soon after and got their 3 points and got them on the board. But it was like Ireland went, what was that silly moment there? Let's go back up the fucking field and do something. You know?
It was that, yeah, you're right. Actually, it was weird because no one really reacted. It was very strange. It's like, did that just happen? I had to listen to the commentators kind of confirm it for me, because nobody on the pitch like laughed or nobody said anything, or it was like very weird. But they were obviously just like, oh, okay, move on.
Nobody knew what was going to happen next. I think they went, oh, right, what do we do? I think because the audience should have been roaring, laughing, but I think everybody just kind of went, what?
Yeah.
Just as it'd be like the ball just.
But I'm always surprised that it doesn't happen more often.
Yeah, it was the number one thing I thought the first time I ever saw one in the Principality that time. It was like, how is that thing not getting belted the whole time? But it's obviously, it doesn't.
Or even the strings.
Yeah. They've obviously worked it out to a point where they're going, the probability of it actually hitting that, no, it's not going to happen. Well, there you go. And
Jesus, it's all well and good in the first 30 seconds, but imagine if it was like you're building towards something, or there's a massive opportunity for something, and
yeah, because you probably aren't expecting to have to make go for a scrum right there, in that moment, like 30 seconds into the game, like so.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things though, like you could always run into the ref or kick the ball off the ref. Like the ref has to be there. It's kind of like the spider cam now kind of has to be there, does it?
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
It's like the Netflix people that are hanging around. It's like, oh, they have to be there now because they're giving us money. But the ref, like, I was at a 10s tournament. Oh no, it was actually 7th tournament last year. And someone went to kick the ball, and the ref went to like bend over to let the ball go over his head, and literally like boom, like right into his gooch. It was so funny.
I imagine
like showed, like bent over away from the ball, like to try and get out of the way, and literally showed his arse, and like bang. It was so funny.
Right up the exhaust. Woo!
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that was enjoyable.
I had a great. There's been nuggets of gold throughout this, and I mean the I suppose the very obvious ones are the likes of Doris coming on, from an early career of injury and concussion and stuff like that. But my God Almighty, like he came, like I saw a great tweet. It was like, Jesus Christ, Caelan, like he. And they didn't actually say who, but they were like, he only just won the Best Player of the Year award. You could 2 months ago. You don't have to steal it off him this early. And it was great, and it's like, Jesus Christ, on the same team on either sides of the, like, oh, that's my God. It
seems on the pitch. And I often think that about like Player of the Year. Do you kind of sink back a little bit after winning it? It seems as if, like, Josh van der Fleer is amazing, but he's not the best back row there anymore.
No, he's not. My good God. Like, there seems to be nothing your man can't do. Footwork, handing off. But this, like, the core strength that man has, like, with a player hanging off him and still able to give not an offload, not a floppy old ball over the top, like an absolute bullet of a pass.
Pass, which is the hardest one to do.
Yeah. I like getting dragged out of like a cheetah hanging out the back of him, and he just bang out to Gary Ringrose, who then of course goes looking into traffic with Jelly Bear. That was some slap in the arse for Jelly Bear, wasn't it? Like, he actually ran back into him, didn't try and go run outside him, ran back into him, and then just shoved him on the ground like a child. It was.
I know, and the three of them there like rolling over each other.
Oh.
That was good. That was a great moment. But yeah, I agree. Caelan Doris is something else.
But I think the nugget for me of the whole thing, I think, is Finlay Bealham. I think that's the gold nugget for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, Jesus Christ, nobody was giving Finlay the time of day a year ago. Like, and even people were going, Jesus Christ, what do we do without Tig? A man rocks up with his cornrows, like he's about to sing, like, do some rapping.
Chill. All of them are. All of them are pure feckin' chill. The only one who's not so chill, even though he seems it as a player and not so much in personality, is James Lowe. He's the only one that's kind of like, whoa, and giving it socks. And I know in terms of like Ross Byrne, like shouting and stuff, that's obviously comes with the position. But the only one that's a gobby is James Lowe, and it's kind of part of his personality, so people don't
Yeah,
mind
he's
it.
got
But
long
all the
hair.
rest of them, yeah, Finley Beelum is cornrows.
Yeah, valid point. Valid point.
And I actually, although I wouldn't wear them myself, I still think he looks great. He's pure, like, it looks a bit weird, the cornrows, but I kind of love him for it because he obviously loves wearing his hair like that. So
There's a lot to be said with sticking with the thing. You know what I mean? If he had
yes,
cornrows one
true.
week, like David
And they were
Beckham
gone
back
the
in
next week.
yeah, you're going bit of it, stick with, and he gets them done every time, like the UFC fighters who have long hair, they get cornrows, same as the girls that get cornrows, just so their hair isn't flopping everywhere, like.
Yeah.
Which, like, this is just the coolest guy ever. Just as you said, chill is the perfect phrase. Like, slot him in there, no bother. Yeah, I'll do it. Lock out a scrum. Tip of the cap to John Fogarty, locking out a scrum against those monsters. When people will go, oh Jesus, never went backwards.
Yeah.
And gave that. I hate to use the phrase because they're using it too much. Like, but it was a sumptuous little dummy for the wraparound to Murray, and then back into Hugo at full tilt.
Oh, it was so good.
And had to run around a big old fat Antonio nearly got in the way, and the ref nearly got in the way. But he didn't even lose it.
It all helped somehow.
I think you might be right. But when you look at it, you're like, Jesus Christ, you wouldn't get a fag paper up that gap. How did he get through that? Just goes through like a grease lightning, just sing.
And it was, I don't know, I think did you like my tweet about the one with the Caitlin Doris attacking with two hands on the ball?
Yes, I did, yeah.
I just was chatting with people online about it on Twitter, that like basically just running with the ball in two hands, it's just the best, one of the best skills in the world. It's so amazing. And like a lot of the kids I coach, they won't run with the ball in two hands. They just refuse to do it, and they keep like tucking it, and then they're like running at people. And you need to learn like to run the ball in two hands. If one-handed offloading comes later in life, grant, but you cannot run before you walk.
Yeah.
And just the people that got back to me in the thread and stuff, like someone then shared like that Hugo Keenan try, and like just the difference that it made for him to have two hands on the ball and to have a little look to the left, sent, who is the defender? I think it was Dupont.
Yeah.
Sat him down for like lit him like for a half a second, made him like, oh, and it scored us the try, bought him enough space to score the try. It was so good. Like, put it on repeat. He used the exact same one in 2014. Did you see that?
Yeah. But you remember Andrew Conway when he sailed through Toulouse that time, like two hands on the. Do you remember? Caught it over his head.
Oh yeah.
He only tucked it under the wing when he was over the line.
Andrew Conway.
Nobody knows. See, this is the thing. You explained it brilliantly there. Most people, you'll hear the likes of Liam Tolan would go, "Oh, it's great to see lads carry two hands." They never say why. Yes, it's more secure. But what Anna's saying is, you haven't a clue which way he's going to pass it. If he's got it under his left wing, he can only, what's he going to do? He's got to suck it back into his other hand to pat. Like, he's only giving it left if it's under the left. He's only giving it right if it's under the right.
Absolutely.
Every so often you'll get like Van de Murva last week, all right, when he did that unbelievable siding run. He did transition into the other hand, but that's the level of danger in doing that.
Yeah.
The runner with the two hands, it can go either way.
That's very much decision-making stuff as well that comes like in your adult career. And I'm talking about kids a lot here now because that's what the tweet was about. Basically, there'd be young fellas, and I'm saying boys because girls don't argue about this, especially like girls in rugby. I've learned a lot from coaching young boys and young girls. And like, if you tell boys something, they'll try not to do it exactly like you ask because they feel like it's admitting that they didn't know how to do it in the first place.
Okay, right, yes.
Whereas girls will do exactly what you ask to show that they understood and can apply what they've heard. So boys will, like, you're doing a two-handed drill, passing drill, and they'll start to pass with one hand. They do it here in Spain, like, and I'm like, lads, you have to have this skill, and you have to do it more and more so that it comes more naturally to you, so that, like, the more you can swap, keep it in two hands, tuck it, transfer it back, the harder you're making it for the defender. Because the defender, if it's exactly like you say, if it's under one arm, the defender only has one job.
Yeah.
Come and tackle it. Easy. If it's in two hands and you look over one shoulder and the defender has two people to cover now, you can manipulate that defender and you can run through yourself. So either selling the dummy or fixing them on you enough to give away the pass. Like, so yeah, that was today's Twitter.
I loved it. No, it's a
conversation.
great explanation of it, exactly why you should keep it in two hands for as long as you possibly can. I mean, we could wax lyrical, as they say, about Caelan Doris, but sure, there's nothing we're going to say that hasn't been said, like the fawning, the love for that guy. And he seems so cool. He seems like a cool cat too. Like, you know what I mean? Him and Mac Hansen, they seem to be getting those, they get those those bromance photographs after every fight.
It's so cute. I love it. And that's another thing I wanted to say a minute ago about Andy Farrell as well. Like, all of these pictures that are coming out afterwards of, like, the lads like Caelan Doris and Mac Hansen hugging each other, and then the guys who there was Killer and Craig Casey came out holding hands, and some of the other players, and they're all smiling.
There's a lot of love. There's a lot of love in that group.
There's a lot of love, and they were kind of, like, holding hands, walking out. Everyone's entitled to do what they want, but to me that seems like a little bit silly. Like, they're having a bit of fun and a bit of crack. Like, to do that for, I think, was that their captain's run, I think? Or was it the warm-up? Either way, it's, usually for a coach to kind of allow their players to behave that way, be a little silly, spread the love, hugging each other, laughing, smiling. I think a lot of that's coming from Andy Farrell as well, like, just the encouragement for the players to be themselves and to look out for each other and look after each other. It actually makes me, like, really happy to see that for the players. I'm delighted for them. And
via osmosis, for your average person who doesn't know that's going on, it's almost coming through the TV screen, like, in a sense, like, you're going, this is, Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? There's an absolute warmth in each other. Like, it doesn't, like, look like they're trying, hey, give me the ball. Like, it just seems to be one in, all in, genuinely. I mean, that it's an overplayed Vodafone phrase, like, we're all, but I genuinely think, because even I saw, like, Killer, he was like TikTok messaging a guy who's like, I don't know, is he like a takeaway critic in the UK? Giant, big, fat fella, massive, like, and him and James Ryan on their 50th cap in the dressing room were like, all right, Big John, it's they said we're after winning our caps, and it was like, delighted, big fans of yours. Anyway, we're going for a big feed after this. You go, this is what's on your mind. The Blackgarden the two boys were Blackgarden just after beating France in the Six Nations. You're like, oh, class. Oh,
well, I say that it's easy to be Blackgarden when you're winning as well.
This is it. Yeah.
But they do go hand in hand. Excuse the pun.
Yeah.
So to allow your players to get to that stage and be winning and allow your players to be that way, it's the perfect formula if you can arrive at it in an organic way. So I hope it lasts.
Exactly. We I honorable mention again, as we did last week, but for different circumstances this week, I'd like Conor Murray he's Renaissance man. He's back to his best, and given the week that he had, like, the drain that would have been, your dad getting into a bad car accident and stuff, and still showing up, like, what a man, and putting in a performance like that,
Everyone wanted him to score that try. It was kind of two occasions.
Do you know what? Those are two offsides. That try should have been allowed when he dived in. That those players were offside. I watched it again. There was two players offside that Barnes missed.
Play on!
Play on! I mean, and also, like, for anybody, I tweeted this, anybody who, a lot of people piss moaning and complaining, going, ooh, big eyes, and James Lowe's toe scraping the ground. Have a look at what the tackle E is doing. He's got a no arms tackle with his shoulder. there is absolutely, should have been technically a penalty try, even if it was ruled out, if it was scratched off.
Yeah, I think going on the nature of the refereeing, he wouldn't have looked at that again anyway.
Nah. Like they were saying, it's so French. No, it's so French the way we didn't get it. It's a Six Nations. I think it was an English guy actually. It's a independent Six Nations crew have their truck outside in the yard of the Aviva. They're doing their own. It's not French. It's not Irish anymore.
ITV had an angle that clearly showed his foot was in touch. Well, actually, I say clearly showed. I need to watch it again because I'm not sure at what stage the ball is already on the floor. But I suppose it was very weird, like the way his foot came across and like, whoo.
Yeah, well,
like,
I loved his face was like, oh, jeez.
Yeah, he was like,
sheesh.
Play on quickly. But like, what actually is the rule? Is it grass or mud? Grass or earth?
Yeah,
yeah. That's how fine it was.
Yeah, you're tipping. Are you skimming the grass? Yeah, we should ask Peter O'Mahony about that because
we should ask Pete. He knows every blade of grass at that place.
So yeah, I mean, roll on the World Cup. Whereas I was obviously being a bollocks saying I would get that engraver, the World Cup engraver, get him how to spell Ireland correctly. That was just to look. I'm a troll. I'm an absolute troll, and it worked. It worked. So.
Oh, did you send that tweet?
Yeah, of course I tweeted it.
I didn't see it. I need to go back and check with you.
I'm a troll. I'm an absolute troll. Very good. So before we move along, I mean we've got our 3 segments. And we don't have a lot of time this evening, so we'll just barely skip over the other ones. Did you want to give us your point of view?
I actually clatter of the week.
It's the clatter of the week.
Oof. Went to Antonio. I should have added that in there. I actually looked for one in the other games, and whether there was something else, it just didn't stick with me as much as Antonio. So he is my clatter of the week. And
very good.
Dick of the day.
Don't you know we all make mistakes? There's no need to cry. We love you still. You're our champion. And our Dick of the day.
I actually wanted to give it to Wayne Barnes for the Antonio incident for messing up on the cards. But I'm actually going to give it to Mac Hansen because he was so close to the try line. I've been in that position before where you're like reaching and like it's such a natural feeling to like fall forward with the ball and something's pulling you back. I'd have been raging if I was him.
Can you imagine?
Just the feeling of being so close and then, oh, fuck. And Dupont, like, sorry, I need to take back what I said there a minute ago about, like, do you go downhill after winning the World Player of the Year? Because obviously that's, he disproves that theory. But Dick of the Day goes to our beautiful Mac Hansen, who we love and adore, and
who has
sorry for him.
He has stolen my mustache too, by the way. He's got a big old Tom mustache on him this week. So yeah, tip of the cap. Dick of the Day. Well, I may as well just throw straight in there because he'd be right good for.
He'd be right for that.
I'm gonna take based on that. It's Dupont, who has a brown belt in judo. Which explains an awful lot for his low center of gravity and how he's able to hit people. He also knows in judo you need to understand people's center of gravity and their body shape so that you can utilize so there'd be no point in him hitting Mac Hansen above the belly button, because he's got maybe 6 or 7 inch. So where he's got him is like if you watch cowboys, how they catch a calf. If they're taken off, they don't catch it just back by the back legs where they're going to get some motion. He's got him up front and tight and putting a squeeze on him. But that's not to take away the strength of that man. Like, pound per pound has to be one of the strong. I mean, up there, Faf de Klerk, is up there too. But I mean, pound for pound has to be one of the strongest people in world rugby. But I'm going to put him down for, I think he would be, I was trying to get imaginative of what he'd be really good for given that holding power that he has. And I think if you imagine, Anna, if you owned, say you owned a super value that was on a hill, right? Mm-hmm. And every so often that somebody didn't clip the trolleys back together to take their €2 coin back out. They didn't clip it back in correctly. And all of a sudden, 9 or 10 trolleys all took off. Disaster. If you don't have the right sort of unit to get after it, you couldn't ask Antonio because he wouldn't be fast enough to catch those trolleys taking off down the hill and going to blow out half a mallow when it goes flying down the hill. No, you need a man who's not only low to the ground, can get around a trolley, fast, and when he catches a hold of them, that dozen trolleys, just digs the heels in, stops them dead, and just pushes them back up, to huge applause from at least the 14 or 15 old ones that are outside Super Value that day. I think personally that's what I saw when I was looking at it. I would love if anybody's out there who's really good at Photoshop out Mac Hansen and just a fleet of trolleys, Super Value trolleys specifically, being caught by Antoine Dupont as they go flying down the hill in Mallow. That was my rave. You're right. Just look. I've looked at it.
Our Super Value isn't on the hill, thankfully.
Is it? No, it's down. No, it's not actually. No, it's not. But you do have plenty of hills, so we'll put it up there. Look,
true.
By the same token, I don't ever see the man have. Maybe he will move to Mallow and take a job at Super Value. I don't know, but I wouldn't hold it against him if he did. But I don't see it happening. Right, brilliant. Let's skip along. So as the weekend went on, I mean, nobody really knew what was going to. We're hopeful for Scotland because we're all Scottish fans now. Because of course, they're great, and Ben Healy is somewhere in the building. I don't know in the mix or whatever, but. I think more so, I think their tails are up, but they probably learned Shagall because the Wales Gatland experiment does seem to be his cape is a little
will you relax?
Well, what's he going to do between now and the World Cup? Where's he going to find him? I mean,
It doesn't matter. They're working on something. I
tell you one thing. If I was Wayne Pivac, I'd be sitting back, supping my tea, going,
Of course you would be.
A fucking
Of course.
Excuse me? Wait, what's the... Excuse me?
Of course you would be, but that's not the reality. The reality is that Gats is in there, literally only a couple of weeks, and just let him off. Sure, we said it. I said it at the beginning.
Yeah, it's true.
It doesn't matter. And I actually... We might as well just keep coming down them hard because that'll spur them on. There's no point us being easy on them either. It'll start to come together for them more. Sure, how do you? I don't know. But do you know what? The young players that kind of played well against Ireland weren't great at the weekend. So I think in terms of the young winger, who I thought did really well last week, made a few errors, but that's obviously through experience and whatever. But your experienced players in Wales, they seem to be kind of out on their own.
Yeah, I mean, leaving the likes of Tipperick out. I know you'd call him experienced, which is almost in one way sometimes can be a mean word for over the hill, but it's not. It's not what you're on about. I don't think it is anyway. Maybe Alan Jones, he's got about 194 caps, but you're leaving somebody you can't just shore him completely of the lads who've done it they've literally done it. They have Grand Slams. Do you know what I mean? They have Grand. So. Yeah. Look, you're right. I don't want to come down on them too hard, but at the same time, I don't want to pump Scotland's tires too much either. At the same time, you're like, relax, lads, relax, because Scotland are on for the slam. They are technically on for the slam, but they're kind of
let them enjoy it. They're going to enjoy it as much as we're enjoying it until weekend before Paddy's is when we play Scotland, isn't it?
It is. I think it is.
So we'll let them enjoy themselves. Oh, they have France next, though, is it?
They have France next. Who will be smarting, no doubt. By the way, the greatest phrase from the weekend, the most poetic thing I heard from the weekend, and we were talking him up last week, was Fabien Galtier with his amazing glasses. Did you hear what he said? It was the most French, beautiful. I wanted to take my shirt off and start painting when I heard it. It was like, defeat is not our friend, but today we must be in her company. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ, did you? Who says that? The guy wearing the bespoke pair of glasses. Yeah, of course
He's
it
been
does.
waiting to use that for a while then.
Well, 14 or 15 matches to be waiting to fucking use it, but what a great, like that is Eric Cantona shit.
I like him.
Isn't
Yeah,
it?
I like him. I like him. He's an interesting old soul.
Today we
Eh,
must be in our company.
Yeah, and if she sticks around any longer, we'll burn her at the stake.
We'll be filing fucking for divorce, the bitch. Like,
Going if we're talking about head coaches, did you see? Obviously, everyone's gushing over Finn Russell, and we've spoken for how much we love him, and he's
him and his dad, yeah.
Him and his pops. Did you see that excellent offload he did? Obviously, because everyone's been talking about it, and the try that he set up out in the wing with the offload at the back. To I'm talking about, and it showed the coaches' boxes afterwards. Not the coaches' boxes, the coaches' box. They showed the coaches' box afterwards. Sorry. And Gregor Townsend is just like,
yeah.
And like the assistant coach who was next to him was like, basically like, didn't you see he did this, and like imitated it, and Gregor Townsend is like not impressed at all. So there's definitely something going on there still.
Because he's not doing what he's told to do. Like that's what, and it has to be vexing. You're in charge. You're paid to literally tell them what to do. But Jesus Christ, there has to be a point where what Andy Farrell is doing, it would seem, giving him free license. So you're going, yeah, you won't get a bollocking. Give it a go.
Have you watched? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just thinking, how can you imagine how well Finn? Now, I'm not saying he would do any, but I would, in another dimension, how well Finn Russell would do playing for Ireland under Andy Farrell. Can you imagine it? Like, Jesus Christ.
It's like, have you watched The Last Dance on Netflix?
Yes, yeah, with the Michael Jordan and and the Chicago Bulls.
They manage Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
You know, if you can, it's very difficult to strike, because if you have a player as valuable as Dennis Rodman, and you could argue that Finn Russell is as valuable to Scotland.
He's got a Lamborghini.
Who has a Lamborghini?
Finn Russell. Yeah. They're going to pay him £1 million to play for Bristol next year. Is it Bristol he's coming to? £1 million a year they're going to pay him. Yeah.
Well, there you go. And if the Chicago Bulls managed how they managed Dennis Rodman, like letting him, while other players were in camp and training, he was allowed to go to Vegas to blow off steam. This is what I need, coach, to be the best player. And Phil Jackson let him. Phil Jackson's like, okay, I can facilitate that. And then he doesn't come back from Vegas, so Michael Jordan has to like fly down to Vegas and pull him out by the scruff of his neck, which I love.
Similar to Jack Charlton having to go get Paul McGrath down to Kinsale that time. It was very similar.
Yeah. So how very difficult to manage, because then you've got other players who are, but if you've someone that valuable, if you can manage them and trust them. But like, it's amazing how Dennis Rodman was able to be as good as he was while, binging down in Vegas. And so
can you imagine Finn Russell becoming good friends with Kim Jong-un the way Dennis Rodman has? Like, just out there trying to Dennis Rodman is great friends with Kim Jong-un, right? And he puts on basketball demos and stuff out there. Can you imagine Finn Russell out?
About his grand Kim.
But yeah, it is. But rugby's it's not American. That's the bottom line. It ain't fucking American, and there has to be discipline.
Not suggesting it.
No, I know it's a very fine line, like where you go, Finn. But Finn probably has a little bit more growing up to do. But I mean, he's just been.
How old is he?
He's Scottish age. This is Scottish age. It's like dog years. Nobody knows, Anna. Nobody knows.
Because
there's no vitamin C to be had in anywhere in the entire country of Scotland. They don't have vegetables. Vitamin D is literally hiding under a piece of moss somewhere. It's a strange place.
Commentator said something about Finn Russell. Oh, he's got a bright future ahead of him or something. And then they laughed. So didn't know, like.
I think he's 29. I could be wrong, but I think somebody was talking about Ben Healy usurping him, which is a word you will never hear me use again because it doesn't come out of my mouth correctly, but usurping him as a 23-year-old cutting down the king at 29. Do you know what I mean? So they were like, he hasn't got a lot of miles. But then again, you're like, the guy doesn't work out in the gym, so he's not beating his body up. He's as flexible as could be, and he just doesn't get hurt. So I mean, he's got a couple of more years left in him. But
Well, going on, Johnny Sexton style, he's got almost another decade left in him.
old Johnny Tom Brady Sexton, yeah.
Yeah. But the commentators on that game as well, it was so funny. Do you know what I love? When commentators talk about like the fans or they say something funny, I don't know, it depends what coverage you were watching, but like there's a Scottish commentator and there was a Welsh fella sitting in the crowd like on his own wearing like the daffodil,
Yeah.
around his head, and something was going on, small kind of very short break and play. I was like, there's a very serious daffodil looking on in the background there.
Do you know what? There's a lot to be said for the Scottish accent too, though, in that moment. Like,
it was just so, I enjoyed it so much that they were like, yes, the daffodils don't normally come out this early, but they're here in force this weekend, and talking about the fella in the background, the daffodil, and like the camera zooms in on him, and your man's just like, the daffodil around his head. It's just like, the commentators. Yeah, there does. It's like a small bit of respite for like people listening at home and the commentators that themselves that are like rugby, crazy like detail focus on the game, and then like some fella just sitting there and his pint in his daffodil head catches his eye and they start talking about him. I love it so much. They need to do it more.
Well, Micheál Murhertig, if we could get a rugby Micheál Murhertig, who, like, if anybody who has no idea, who literally type that out phonetically, like I just said it, Michael Murhertig, great GA commentator, and there's a plethora of amazing respites in between play where players were down, getting injured, or people were, and it was a great one where Teddy McCarthy, the Cork hurler, was it's just there's a million of these, but there's a one. It's so psychedelic and brilliant the way he described it. It's like Teddy was standing over the ball to take a free, and he says, Teddy looks at the ball looks back at Teddy. It's just this notion that the ball had little googly eyes going, go on Teddy boy, drive me over the bar. Do you know what I mean? There was a moment. And like, how would that not add to I think it would add to the game. I like Bill McLaren back in the day when he used to describe people as being like a foraging little terrier. And you're like, yeah, we need more of that stuff. Like,
and the same fella, whoever he is, I actually don't even, maybe I do know who it is and I just didn't, I don't know at the moment, but he said, there goes Van der Merwe, all hair and biceps.
Brilliant. Because that's pretty much him. Yeah. Brilliant.
He must have been listening to our pod as well.
We have been nearly avoiding, because we're running out of time and you have to go to training. We've almost been avoiding talking about England and Italy. I still love Capuzzo. I mean, every time the guy, as you said, he's just a breath of fresh air. Italy, I enjoy watching Italy. England kicking the leather off it, of course, going pure Leicester. I mean, it's shape. I mean, look, they may go back to, they have the bulk and the size and pragmatism, I suppose, to go back to, and Leicester have done well with Steve Borthwick, but God, it's not interesting to watch.
No,
given the way rugby is going, it's clearly going to a place where faster, play on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And 46 minutes of ball in play. If England find themselves in that place, that's going to be a sore day at the office. If you haven't prepped yourself for that, you know what I mean? If your plan is just to whack the ball all day long, like Owen Farrell, these old cross kicks and chip through, and all you have to do is ship it out through the fucking hands. Like, you're going, what are you doing, man? What are you doing?
No.
You know, but it's
so disappointing after, even last week, and like all three games were so brilliant, and then like the Sunday game was just like, this wonderful way to spend a Sunday, and then you sit down and you watch that and you're like, especially given how exciting like the Ireland game particularly had been the day before. So
you have a full Twickenham, and it's as dead as it's as flat as a pancake in the place, because they can't get up, they can't get going. They've all these amazing players, and it's like, oh God almighty. Now, who's to say in 3 weeks' time they may have actually found a bit of flow, a bit of continuity? It might be the rope up. We don't know. They might be just playing and behind closed doors, which I doubt, but behind, they might be playing amazing sparks. But God, that was, as you
Yeah,
said,
I
a
don't
bit of
know.
an anticlimax to the whole weekend.
Yeah, which was a bit sad, and I'd love, like we were saying, you know, it would have been a great opportunity for Italy to just nip it and just, or at least push it to the end. But it was clear that they kind of were running out of ideas, or they kind of were getting isolated, or yeah, that was a shame actually. They're still brilliant, and Capuzzo is still like, yeah, an absolute joy to watch, and thank God for him,
Yeah.
because he had something else. Sebastian Negri was amazing as well, and we spoke about him last week. And remember, I said he was from South Africa. He actually was born in Namibia. There was a very interesting article about him. Did you read that?
Yeah. Oh my
He had
God.
a very
Yeah.
sad upbringing, a very sad incident when he was very young in Namibia. So he has a very interesting background, and he played amazing. Jeepers, he was brilliant.
There's definitely more love with Italy, not because they're underdogs. I think at least they're trying to play rugby. I mean, this park the bus rugby that England are playing at the minute, it's just not. It's not what it would seem World Rugby are looking for. It's like, come on, guys. Come on, guys.
It's
You know what you
annoying.
need to do.
It's annoying that Italy didn't beat them.
Yeah.
If
Oh,
Italy
yeah.
had beat them, not just cause it's Italy and we're rooting for them, but like to say, okay, please don't use that style of rugby anymore, because number
Yeah.
one, shite, number two, you're losing. But at least if they're winning, they'll continue.
Yeah.
They'll
It's,
continue that,
that's a
which is
valid
how
point.
Leicester won the Prem. So we'll see.
Well, this ain't no
see.
Prem. This ain't no Prem. And best of luck booting down Ugo Keenan's. Best of luck if you're kicking the ball to that fella. So I think the less said about that game, the better. And the more said about you're off to train with your Manky protein. But where you're on? Is it the Echo? You said you're or
Yes.
the Evening Echo. It's brilliant.
The Evening Echo, the Cork Evening Echo. Yes, I have a column coming out every Wednesday. Even though last week's one came out on the Saturday, which was a week after the Wales game and on the day of the French game, so it was kind of it was like a week later than it should have been. But it'll now be every Wednesday, so I'm told. Apparently, I'm waiting for like confirmation, but weekly column in the Evening Echo, so keep an eye out.
Tremendous stuff. Well, we don't have games next weekend, but we'll pop back on, maybe do a short version or something next week to pump up what we think is going to come down the tracks for the following weekend. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in, subscribing, being very kind and very, very nice, sharing with everybody else. If this is your first time listening and you are on Spotify, please give it the 5 stars. And listen, that is no use to us. If you are on Apple Podcasts, write us an old review, sure. Write us an old review. You can catch either one of us, Banana Capeless and Tom O'Mahony, on most places. We're very easy to track down. Other than that, Anna, enjoy training, and I'll chat to you next week.
Good luck!
It's the Banana and Bears Rugby Pod.